Hash, have you ever noticed how often your mind gets hijacked? Have you ever stopped to consider how many times a day your mind is hijacked by an impulse? How often do you lose control of your thoughts, your energy, your very presence in the world, because something primal within you has seized the reins of your consciousness? This isn't a question about morality or sin. This is a question about power, about who truly reigns on the throne of your mind, you or your most basic impulses. Modern man lives in an invisible prison, built not of iron bars but of neurons, conditioned to seek instant gratification. He believes he is free because he can choose between 1,000 forms of pleasure, but he doesn't realize that this very obsession with choice is in itself a slavery. Contemporary society has transformed sexual desire into consumption fuel, into the engine of a machine that transforms human beings into compulsive consumers of empty stimuli. We are bombarded by images, suggestions, promises of satisfaction that never fully materialize, leaving us always hungry, always chasing the next dopamine hit. But there is a different path, a path that the ancients knew, and that Napoleon Hill rediscovered while studying the most successful men of his time. He realized something that modern psychology still struggles to comprehend. Sexual energy is not just a biological impulse. It is the most powerful creative force inhabiting the human being. It is the primordial fire that, when left unchecked, consumes everything around it, but when mastered and transmuted, becomes the source of every great achievement, every great work, every great transformation. The concept of mental desexualization is not about denying your nature. It's about recognizing that you are much more than your impulses. It's about discovering that behind every sexual desire, there is a creative energy waiting to be channeled into higher purposes. When Napoleon Hill spoke of sexual transmutation, he wasn't talking about repression. He was talking about alchemy, about the ancient art of turning lead into gold, but applied to the human psyche. Imagine for a moment that you are an ancient warrior, and within you dwells a dragon. This dragon is powerful. It is fiery. It is capable of destroying mountains. Most men try to kill the dragon, or become its slave, but the true warrior learns to ride the dragon. He doesn't deny its existence. He doesn't try to destroy it. He recognizes its strength and directs it where he wants to go. This is the essence of mental desexualization, not the death of desire, but its conscious mastery. The Stoics deeply understood this principle. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the known world, didn't just rule Rome. He ruled himself. His meditations reveal a man who understood that true power lies not in the ability to possess or conquer externally, but in the ability to direct one's own internal energy where it is truly needed. Epictetus, who went from slave to philosopher, discovered that true freedom doesn't come from changing circumstances, but from changing our relationship with our own impulses. When you observe your mind during an ordinary day, you realize how it functions like a wild animal, jumping from thought to thought, from desire to desire, without conscious direction. You think you're thinking, but you're actually being thought by forces you don't understand or control. Your vital energy, which could be channeled to create, to build, to uplift, is being dissipated in fantasies, in artificial stimuli, in a never-ending pursuit of satisfaction that never fully arrives. Modern pornography is just the most obvious manifestation of a much more subtle and pervasive system of mental conditioning. It trains the brain to seek instant gratification, to associate pleasure with passivity, to confuse stimulation with real satisfaction. But the real problem isn't pornography itself. The real problem is that it's a symptom of a mind that hasn't learned to direct its own energy. It's like a river that instead of being channeled to irrigate fertile fields, overflows and creates swamps. The journey of mental desexualization begins with a brutal and honest recognition. You are not your thoughts. You are not your impulses. You are not your automatic reactions. You are the consciousness that observes all of this. And as consciousness, you have the power to choose where to direct your attention, your energy, your life force. But this power needs to be developed like a muscle that has atrophied from lack of use. Napoleon Hill discovered that the most accomplished men of his time had one thing in common. They had learned sexual transmutation. They weren't men without desire. They were men who had transformed their desire into fuel for their highest visions. Henry Ford didn't build an automotive empire, despite his sexual energy, but through it. Thomas Edison didn't create his inventions by denying his nature, but by channeling all his life force into the laboratory of creation. This transmutation doesn't happen through brute force or violent repression. It happens through understanding, through awareness, through a gradual but firm redirection of energy. It's like learning to play an instrument. At first your fingers don't obey. Your attempts sound like noise. But with conscious and persistent practice, those same fingers that once created cacophony begin to produce music. The first step on this journey is to develop what the ancients called the inner witness. It's the part of you that can observe your own thoughts without identifying with them. When a sexual impulse arises, instead of automatically following it or violently repressing it, you learn to observe it. You notice how it manifests in the body, what thoughts it brings with it, what fantasies it fuels. And in this conscious observation, something magical happens. The impulse loses its compulsive urgency and reveals itself for what it really is, pure energy waiting to be directed. Contemporary society has taught us to fear this energy. It's been presented as dangerous, something that needs to be immediately satisfied or completely suppressed. But both approaches are forms of enslavement. True freedom comes when you recognize that this energy is yours, that it doesn't need to control you, that you can consciously choose how to utilize it. When you begin practicing the desexualization of the mind, something interesting happens to your presence in the world. You stop emanating the desperate energy of a man always searching for something external to complete him. You begin to radiate the magnetic energy of a man who is whole within himself, who has access to his own internal wellspring of power. People around you sense this difference, even if they can't consciously explain it. This is the difference between a low-value man and a high-value man. The low-value man is a slave to his impulses. He reacts, he doesn't act. He's driven by external forces, by stimuli, by compulsive needs he doesn't understand or control. His energy is always leaking, always dissipating in directions that lead nowhere. The high-value man, on the other hand, is the master of his own energy. He may feel the same impulses, but he consciously chooses how to respond to them. And here we come to a crucial point of this journey. If you feel this message resonates deeply with something inside you, if you recognize the truth in these words, and want to continue exploring this path of transformation and self-mastery, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Why? Because what we're building here isn't just content, it's a community of men committed to their own evolution. Each video is another step up this climb towards your highest potential. And when you subscribe, you're not just receiving information, you're declaring to yourself and the universe that you're ready to take control of your own life. You're saying you no longer want to be a hostage to unconscious patterns, that you're willing to do the work necessary to become who you truly can be. Sexual transmutation works through principles that alchemists have known for millennia. The first principle is the recognition that all energy is neutral in its essence. It's like electricity. It can power a light bulb that illuminates, or a machine that destroys. The difference lies not in the energy itself, but in how it's channeled and used. Your sexual energy is pure electricity. When misdirected, it becomes compulsion, addiction, dissipation. When properly channeled, it becomes creativity, focus, personal magnetism. The second principle is that this energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Men who try to completely kill their desire often end up creating an internal pressure that eventually explodes destructively. Men who completely surrender to it become slaves to a force that never truly satisfies them. But men who learn the art of transmutation discover they can use this same energy to fuel their highest aspirations. Think of the great artists, the great leaders, the great visionaries of history. They weren't people without passion. They were people who had learned to channel their passion into creations that transcended their immediate personal needs. Michelangelo sculpting David wasn't denying his human nature. He was expressing it through a higher form. Leonardo da Vinci creating his inventions wasn't suppressing his vital, he was sublimating it into visions that still inspire us today. The desexualization of the mind is therefore a process of conscious sublimation. It's about raising the frequency of your energy, transforming primal impulses into refined expressions of creativity and personal power. When you stop dissipating your sexual energy on empty stimuli, something remarkable happens. That energy doesn't disappear. It accumulates, intensifies, and seeks other outlets. If you consciously channel it, it becomes fuel for your projects, your visions, your most ambitious goals. The Stoics had a deep understanding of this process. They knew that true strength doesn't come from denying passions, but from directing them through reason and virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This strength he speaks of is precisely the ability to direct your internal energy to where you consciously decide it should go. When you practice the desexualization of the mind, you're not becoming less masculine. You're becoming more masculine, in the deepest sense of the word. Masculinity isn't defined by how often you satisfy sexual impulses. It's defined by your ability to lead, starting with leading yourself. It's defined by your ability to create, not just physically, but in all aspects of life. It's defined by your ability to protect and nurture, not just others, but also your own highest potentials. The man who has mastered the art of sexual transmutation develops qualities that are immediately perceptible: magnetic presence, laser focus, abundant energy, unshakable confidence. He's not constantly drained by compulsive impulses. He's not always searching for something external to feel complete. He carries within him a source of power that's independent of external circumstances. This journey, however, is neither simple nor quick. It requires discipline, patience, and a deep understanding of how your mind works. You'll need to confront patterns that may have been built up over decades. You'll need to question beliefs about pleasure, about masculinity, about what it truly means to be a fulfilled man in the modern world. Hash the path to mental desexual.
What you said, your step process.
The first practical step is to cultivate self-awareness. Begin observing your mental patterns. When do compulsive sexual thoughts arise? What triggers them? How does your body react? What emotions underlie these urges? Often we discover that unprocessed emotions, loneliness, anxiety, boredom, feelings of inadequacy, fuel compulsive sexual desire. The sexual impulse becomes a way to escape these uncomfortable feelings. The second step is to develop practices that strengthen your ability to consciously direct your attention. Meditation, intense physical exercise, creative pursuits, deep study. All these activities train your mind to focus where you decide it should focus. They build what we might call the muscle of conscious will. The third step is to actively redirect your sexual energy towards projects that genuinely matter to you. When you feel the urge arising, instead of automatically following it or fighting against it, use it as fuel to work on your goals. Write, create, build, practice, study. Transform the impulse into constructive action. As you progress in this practice, you'll begin to notice subtle but profound changes in how you relate to the world. You'll stop seeing people primarily through a sexual lens. You'll begin to see them as whole human beings. Your interactions will become more authentic, less laden with hidden agendas. Your ability to form genuine connections will increase exponentially. Your work capacity will also transform. Instead of working in bursts, interspersed with moments of distraction and energy dissipation, you'll develop the ability to sustain deep focus for extended periods. Your projects will begin to reflect a level of energy and creativity you may never have known you possessed. This journey of mental desexualization will also reveal aspects of your personality that were hidden beneath layers of social conditioning. You'll discover genuine interests, authentic passions, natural talents that were being overshadowed by the constant pursuit of sexual gratification. It's like you've been living your life with sunglasses on, and suddenly you take them off. Everything becomes clearer, more vibrant, more real. But perhaps the most profound transformation will be in your relationship with your own personal power. When you are no longer a slave to compulsive urges, when you can consciously choose how to use your most potent energy, you become truly free. Not free in the sense of being able to do anything without consequences, but free in the sense of being able to choose your responses to life's circumstances.
This inner freedom manifests as a magnetic presence. People sense when they're in the presence of someone who possesses true self-mastery. There's a quality of energy that is simultaneously powerful and serene, intense and controlled. It's the energy of a man who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, because he's already proven to himself that he can govern his own most primal impulses. Ancient spiritual masters from various traditions understood this principle. They knew that sexual energy, when conserved and transmuted, becomes spiritual energy, not because sex is bad or impure, but because this energy is so powerful that when it's not constantly dissipated, it naturally seeks expression on higher levels of consciousness. Napoleon Hill observed that many of the most successful men he studied had periods of prolonged celibacy, especially during their most creative and productive phases. They had discovered, often intuitively, that there was a direct connection between the conservation of sexual energy and their ability to accomplish great things in the world. This doesn't mean that healthy sexual expression is detrimental. It means that the compulsive and unconscious dissipation of this energy is a waste of your highest potential. The difference lies in consciousness, choice, and the intentional direction of energy. When you master the art of mental desexualization, you don't lose interest in sex or relationships. You develop the ability to engage with these aspects of life from a place of conscious choice, not unconscious compulsion. Your relationships become deeper, because you're not constantly looking for something to fill an inner void. Your sexuality becomes more fulfilling, because it's not driven by desperate need, but by inner abundance. Modern society tries to convince us that we are merely sophisticated animals, that our most basic impulses are our true nature, and that trying to transcend them is unnatural or repressive. But this is a profoundly limiting view of human potential. We are animals, yes, but we are conscious animals, capable of directing our own evolution through conscious choices. Mental desexualization is, ultimately, about taking full responsibility for your own energy and directing it to create the life you truly want to. It's about stopping being a victim of unconscious impulses and becoming the conscious architect of your own destiny. As you progress on this journey, you'll realize you're not just changing mental patterns, you're changing who you are fundamentally. You're becoming the kind of man who can sustain long-term visions, who can persevere through hardship, who can create real value in the world, because he's not constantly dissipating his energy in the pursuit of immediate gratification. And here we arrive at the climax of this transformative journey, the recognition that the power has always been within you. The sexual energy you learn to transmute is not something foreign or external. It's your own life force, your own creative capacity, your own divine potential manifesting itself through a seemingly primal form. When you master this energy, you're not denying your humanity, you're fulfilling it. You're becoming what you always had the potential to be, a conscious being capable of directing your own inner forces to create beauty, value, and meaning in the world. The man who completes this journey discovers he no longer needs external validation, fleeting pleasures, or completion through others. He carries within him an inexhaustible wellspring of energy, creativity, and power. He becomes magnetic, not because he's trying to attract something, but because he has become something worthy of attraction. This is the true nature of high value. It's not something you achieve or demonstrate to others. It's something you cultivate internally, through the conscious mastery of your own most powerful forces. It's the alchemy of transforming primal urges into elevated expressions of human potential. The desexualization of the mind is just the first step on this journey, but it's a fundamental one. Without it, all other aspects of personal development remain unstable, built on foundations that can be shaken by any stronger impulse. With it, you build on solid rock, the rock of conscious self-mastery. And so you rise not as someone who denied your nature, but as someone who understood it so deeply that you learn to direct it toward your highest purposes. You become the warrior who didn't slay the dragon, but learned to ride it toward the stars, transforming primal fire into light that illuminates not only your own journey, but the path for all those who dare to follow in your footsteps toward true inner freedom.